TVG's coverage of the Pegasus is brought to you by Lanes End Farm, leading stud farm in North America 15 times and the leading sales consignor 27 times. History has shown us that the Breeders' Cup Classic is the perfect stepping stone into Pegasus Cup immortality. And this year, Accelerate will seek the same result.
And Accelerate wins the Breeders' Cup Classic for John Sadler.
Even though the stage has been set for Accelerate to go out on top, there are plenty of other contenders who have their own plans. City of Light was at his best last time out in the Fall Championships.
City of Light has won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile by 2.5 lengths.
And Gunnevera's dominance at Hallandale Beach should not be overlooked.
Gunnevera and Javier Castellano romps in the Fountain of Youth.
A mile and an eighth journey will decide this year's champion in the richest race in North America. This is the Pegasus Handicappers Preview Show.
There is no other race like it in the United States. There's no other setting like this either. Hallandale Beach, Florida, and Gulfstream Park on Saturday, the third renewal of the Pegasus Cup Dirt with a purse of $9 million. As if the day couldn't get any bigger, they've added the biggest turf race offered in America, the Pegasus Cup Turf, at $7 million. Welcome to our Pegasus Cup preview show here on TVG. On our set just off the paddock at Gulfstream Park, I'm Todd Trupp alongside Kaiten Bradar and Simon Bray. We're going to get into the Pegasus World Cup itself in just a moment, but we want to preview what's coming up on the Saturday, as it is a tremendous undercard. There are 9 stakes races, and when you take a look through, 6 of them are graded, and it all leads to the 12th and final, which is the $9 million Pegasus World Cup Invitational itself. Prior to that, the $7 million inaugural running of the World Cup Turf. But look at all those huge races underneath: the William L. McKnight, the La Proviante, the Fred Hooper, all stakes races you've come used to on the calendar here in South Florida, but now part of one day. And any wager, you name it, it's offered on this card, along with big guaranteed pools, and you can play it all at tvg.com. They get started right away in race number 1 with a pick 5. We also have an early pick 4. Don't forget there's a middle pick 4, races 5 through 8, and then we get into those big guaranteed pools late in the day, races 7 through 12, a $750,000 guaranteed pick 6 with that 20-cent increment, as well as the pick 5 and the pick 4. Before we talk to our experts here about what is going to take place on Saturday, we have to revisit what took place on Thursday night in the Grand Pavilion here at Gulfstream Park. It was the 48th Annual Eclipse Awards. The biggest award handed out was that for Horse of the Year, and it went to Triple Crown winner Justify, accepting on behalf of the partnership, Kenny Trout.
I want to thank God for blessing us here tonight. It's just been a blessing, the things he's done for us. I also want to thank all the voters that voted for Justify. Without them, we would not be here tonight. I would thank all of my partners that we have here. They've been just a blessing also, not only just in Justify, but they're partners in a lot of other horses that we have. And it's just been a lot of fun. And we have a lot of fun, especially in the winner's circle.
All right, now Kaiten and Simon, you guys finally get to talk. Okay, so looking back at last night's result, particularly Horse of the Year, the voting block have it right?
That's the way I voted. So I voted for Justify, but I do think that the case was made strongly and fairly for Accelerate, and it was just unfortunate that they wound up in the same year, but fortunate for race fans.
And Simon, it's fortunate for us, we get to see one more start from Accelerate.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to have the start in the Pegasus World Cup, and that's what's happened with the last 2 winners of the Breeders' Cup Classic. But the voting breakdown are 191 votes to Justify, 54 to Accelerate. Monomoy Girl picked up 1, even Enable. I don't know where that came from, but somebody voted for it. But yeah, in the end, it was a bit of a slam dunk. And I've said all week and all year, the difference was, for me, I don't think Justify's going to have a campaign that's going to be replicated at least anytime soon.
Accelerate does head a field of 12, and this the third running of the Pegasus Cup. It'll be the last start of his career, along with City of Light, the two morning line favorites in here. Accelerate, everything seems to be going right here, Caden. Accelerate draws the middle of the field. That's where they wanted to be, 4, 5, or 6. His last workout, many have said, has been one of his best workouts, even going all the way back to his entire campaign last year.
It is amazing to think that a horse that gears up for such an important event could not only take that, but maintain their form physically and out on the racetrack. And Simon, I do think he's coming into this as good, if not better, than he did for Breeders' Cup.
I've seen him consistently all last year in 2018, and he's looked tremendous, and he hasn't regressed in any way, shape, or form since that victory in the Classic. And another thing is, look, we talk about the post-position draw. A lot of the times it has no bearing, no implications. I think it does in the Kentucky Derby with the full field. I think it does here with the run-up to the first turn. The post-position draw could not have worked out more perfectly for Accelerate. He got the post he needed, and he got his biggest threat, City of Light, drawn to the inside of him. It's going to set up tactically perfectly for Accelerate.
Scott Hazelton is part of our team today, previewing the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. Scott, you were also there at the Eclipse Awards last night, talking to everyone as they came in, as well as post what took place. Horse of the Year, in the end, it was a very satisfying night. The connections of Accelerate had big awards in their own right, and then obviously Team Justify had the biggest award.
Yeah, landslide victory. I mean, I think it was to be expected. There was so much of the chatter as we even had on our airwaves between these two horses, Accelerate and Justify, but ultimately the best horse won out in looking at the campaign, in my opinion. And not to get too in-depth at looking at some of the votes, you referenced some of them. It's a shame that we always, every year, look at some of these votes and wonder, where are they coming from? I really think that this needs to be tidied up as we move forward in the Eclipse Award votings by the NTWAB. But that's a totally other conversation. There are never any upsets when it comes to the Eclipse Awards, in my opinion, because if you are a finalist, you are deserving. But I would say the one that I was a little bit surprised by, and it wasn't even that much of a surprise, I thought Marley's Freedom would win out over Shamrock Rose, but ultimately the voters were swayed by her Breeders' Cup performance, and she is a champion. There's no question about it. But looking ahead to the Pegasus on Saturday, let's talk about the weather conditions. We may receive close to an inch of rain on Saturday, but it should be spread out over the course of the afternoon, so it doesn't look like it's going to be that significant. 60% chance of showers on Saturday here in Hallandale Beach, Florida, so hopefully it gets spread out over the course of the day. I'm sure that the track will be tight as far as Saturday, and just as far as the news, not a lot of news, and to be expected, I think, when you're dealing with older horses and proven horses who have been pointing to this race for a while. It's been very quiet on the news front. One small story that is continued to be developed after this weekend. Did have a chance to speak to Elliot Walden of Windstar Farm, Yoshida, as well as Audible. If everything goes well for them this weekend, strong performances, look for them in Dubai, in the Dubai World Cup at the end of March. But as we stand here front side at Gulfstream Park, I'll send you back to the other side of the grandstand and welcome in Christina Blacker.
Scott, good to be with you, and it was wonderful to enjoy the Eclipse Awards last night as well. I thought reflecting on the evening, Costa Hronis' speech for Owner of the Year was one of my favorites, a very sentimental moment. He ended up by saying this was a little boy's dream come true, and you could really understand the relationship between Hronis Racing and John Sadler, their mutual appreciation of each other, and what a ride they have been on with Accelerate. Part of what I think makes him so dangerous in this year's Pegasus World Cup is that he's tactical and he makes his own trip. Joel Rosario able to make that sort of middle move with him in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and I think that is the move that will prove successful for him come Saturday if he's able to take City of Light and some of the other pace setters by surprise as they turn for home. But as I touched on, it was a wonderful night for Team Sadler, and amidst all of the excitement, we did have a chance to catch up with him for some of his thoughts.
I'm so proud of the campaign Accelerate had. He made every dance. He run in the, the best races and won the biggest race. So I'm just thrilled. You're always wanting more. I've got a big barn. I got a lot of good horses. So it's exciting, looking for next year. So we're ready to go.
They are ready to go, and they are coming to play. The Sadler camp in a unique position, having two horses in each of the races with catapults in the Pegasus World Cup turf. Certainly one of the contenders, no matter what you look at, any of the speed figures, any of his recent performances. And he's only run for John Sadler 4 times, and I think each and every start has been a good one. A couple of victories for him. He was second the first time they ran him with some trouble. And I think if you go back to the Breeders' Cup Mile, He never saw Expert Eye coming. He was battling with Analyze It all the way down the lane, put that horse away, and then Expert Eye just up and over the top to take home the victory. Sadler has done a remarkable job with each of these horses and the progression and their training since then. Catapult, aptly named as well, Todd. He does have that slingshot move as they turn for home. It could be quite a day for John Sadler.
Yeah, there are daily doubles, and that would be a huge daily double. They pull off a win there in the inaugural running of the Pegasus Cup Turf on in to the third running of the Pegasus Cup Dirt. Let's talk about the turf race. $7 million. What a way to burst on the scene. Obviously, they did that on the dirt here with the Pegasus Cup Dirt. So we were thinking about races and their inaugural purses. Simon, you may remember this with the Epsom Derby, what they gave away in the first running back in 1780.
I remember that day specifically. It was 1780. It was the first Wednesday in June at that point.
Well remembered, my friend. 1,065 sterling was given away. The Melbourne Cup, inaugurated in 1861. How about 810 gold sovereigns and a gold watch on top of that? Bringing it back to modern times, Caden, it's hard to think that the Dubai World Cup was $4 million. Of course, Team Mott won. It was a cheap race.
Yeah, exactly. And you see the jump that Pegasus took in terms of the financial world of horse racing. You go from Dubai World Cup at the heap of the pack, $4 million, and all of a sudden we vault all the way to $12 million. I think the addition of the Pegasus Turf at $7 million is a nice complement that keeps things a little closer and a little bit more in line with what's happening around the world. It's still one of the richest, if not the richest.
Yeah,
races.
I mean, who would have said 18 years ago you'd have a $7 million? When I was training, you could hardly get a maiden special weight race for 2-year-olds on the grass. Now we're running races $7 million.
Yeah, we were talking about that inaugural Dubai World Cup with $4 million total prize money. How about the winner of this year's Pegasus World Cup gets $4 million? You even make something if you're last in the field of 12 at $200,000. Of course, it took some money to get into the race, but there is big money on the line if you finish in that top 5. $9 million purse. That's how it's distributed, a field of 12. And let's take a look at the horses that are going in this, the third renewal of the Pegasus World Cup Invitational, starting with Bravazzo for the legendary Calumet Farm. D. Wayne Lucas has been on site. He was at the post draw, also had a book signing this week.
Yeah, he's signing today, and Bravazzo dances every dance. He looked magnificent in the flesh. I'm amazed at how this horse carries his form. He doesn't require any one racetrack or any one scenario. You just wonder, is he ever going to have that day where he gets to shine? He's usually the runner-up, but gives good account of himself. And from the rail, it'll be interesting to see if he doesn't have to show more speed.
The Stronach Group is our host of this event, so of course they're going to be represented here. Stronach Stables sending out something awesome.
I don't want to say too much here, but I'll just say, I mean, they've been represented. I think that's as far as we can go here. Realistically, from a pari-mutuel standpoint, this horse is going to be big odds, 20, 30 to 1, and his form backs that up. He looked tremendous. I saw him on the track here earlier this week. A very good-looking individual by Awesome again, the champion that's Frank Stronach and his Stronach Stables campaign. He's a big number.
Caton, you were at the Breeders' Cup at Churchill Downs. Over those 2 days, there may have not have been more impressive winner than this horse, City of Light.
Yeah, he boosted the cause for Accelerate, to be sure, as the only horse that actually was able to beat him earlier in the year and then come back and win the mile. I think he raised the reputation of that race with his performance. He looks great. He's schooled in the paddock. He's been here longer than his main rival, and has worked over the track as well in very good form.
Can Siki the Soul be a diamond in the rough, Simon, for owner breeder Charles Fipke?
He wouldn't shock me at a number. He's 12 to 1 on the line. This is what Dallas Stewart does. Remember, he ran second to City of Light in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, a one-turn mile. I think he's a price. If, he's 10 to 1 or higher, I would take advantage of it. He's looked, again, another horse made a favorable impression here. And look, he's had a start at Gulfstream Park before he's 5th in this race last year, but well beaten.
Accelerate, Breeders' Cup Classic winner. His only loss was to City of Light.
He'll be going for his 5th consecutive victory at the highest level of competition. I think that maybe odds against horses putting together campaigns like that, and yet he draws perfectly. He's positioned to be able to keep an eye on the pace, but have the dream trip with Joel Rosario. I think it's all in his corner.
Gail Benson will be represented by Tom's Day Etat. Obviously, they are a little distracted by the thought that they should be in the Super Bowl, but they're in one of the Super Bowl races of horse racing here. Do they have a chance with this big long shot?
Only if there's a bad call down the stretch, maybe.
Wow, did you really go there?
Tom Stata has never been in a graded stakes race. I mean, he's going from single A to major leagues here. It's a big stretch, but he's a horse that's in form, won 6 out of 9 starts, and he brings in a 4-race win streak.
Calumet Farm also represented in this race by True Timber, Kieran McLaughlin, the trainer.
You know, he's not had success at longer distance races, and yet he's bred beautifully to handle it. If he can carry his form at the Cigar Mile, where he ran a very good second to Pattern Recognition, I think he could have a breakthrough performance, but he still has to step it up.
Think of the last 2 starts for Gunnevera. Second to Yoshida, who is the morning line favorite for the Pegasus Cup turf, and then second last time out to Accelerate, who's the favorite for this race. When is it going to be Gunnevera's turn?
He's going to be a major player in this race. I think he looks better than I've ever seen him before. Saw him in Dubai last year, and he was a much lighter animal, didn't carry as much condition. He's looked tremendous here this week. He loves this racetrack. Majority of his success has come here, and I think he's sitting on a big number here. Whether he can turn the tables and Accelerate, I don't know, but he's going to make that patented late run down the stretch.
Kukulkan is the Mexican Triple Crown winner, and he's never lost. He's 14 for 14, but nobody thinks he can win this race. Are they wrong?
Well, he hasn't beaten anybody to speak of. He does have the race over the track to his credit, and, you know, he's beaten them all, so we don't know how good he is, but he has to run faster than he did in the Caribbean Classic if he's going to be a factor here.
Audible won the Florida Derby, obviously, over this track last year, but Simon, he tanked last time out in the Harlan's Holiday. Can he rebound?
They had all kinds of excuses. Sloppy racetrack, he had a wide trip, the 27-1 shot, the 1 snuck up the rail. To me, I don't think he's good enough. I just look back. One of the advantages of handicapping and past performances is the advent of time. You get to look back and see the competition he's been facing, and I'm convinced that he hasn't been facing a stronger competition as, say, Accelerate and City of Light.
Ron Palucci, owner of Imperative, is convinced he's sitting on a big race. Well, he must be really confident because he even got Dave Weaver a hotel room at the Diplomat to be here for Imperative. But is this horse's best race good enough to win?
Well, his last win was the Charlestown Classic a long time ago, and I have not seen the old Imperative, so I'm taking a wait and see. He's got to prove it to me.
Chad Brown took the Eclipse Award for the nation's outstanding trainer last night for 2018. Can he take the Pegasus World Cup dirt with Pattern Recognition?
He might have lost his chances at the draw. On Tuesday, there were 2 horses left to have their pills pulled. It was City of Light and Pattern Recognition. Both speed horses, post 2 and 13 were left. This is where 12 were left. This is where he ended up. I think he has only one way to go to supplement his running style, and that's to get out and go to the lead. That's where he likes to be. From that outside post as well, Caden, he's going to have to gun hard.
I think that really makes a complicated picture for the horses that maybe have to have their hands forced. When you have a horse like City of Light, inside speed, he may be the only horse that can try to challenge him. So I just see a very fast pace early.
Yep.
That is your primer, as we say in America, for the Pegasus World Cup. As Simon would say, that was your primer. We'll get more in depth when we come back, and you're going to want to take the information we're giving you on this preview show and play it at tvg.com. We're so sure you're going to love it. Florida and New York players, find out how you can bet 200, get 200.
And they're into the stretch, and it's the Breeders' Cup winner. It's Arrogate in front, leading by 3 with 1/8 of a mile to go. Shaman Ghost is trying to get into second. Then Neolithic. Back fourth is Noble Bird, followed by Keen Ice. But what a race! What a sport! What a horse! Arrogate romps in the Pegasus. He won it by 3.5.
The inaugural running of the Pegasus saw a showdown between 2 of the best horses in America at the time, Arrogate and California Chrome. And if you recall, California Chrome drew the outside, and his race was kind of over early in that race. Everyone talks about the outside post position here at Gulfstream Park, especially in these 1.125 races, and it's a real detriment. Scott Hazelton tells us more about that. And Scott, Gunrunner kind of overcame what people had perceived to be a huge bias against when winning last year by essentially winning from the outside.
And the reality of it is, Todd, is that they don't run a lot of mile and an eighth races here at Gulfstream Park. Now with the Pegasus, we have that along with the Florida Derby, and those are the two key Grade 1 races. And we've seen winners be able to overcome this outside draw. You referenced Gunrunner. Let's take you back to last year. He was in post position number 10, and there was so much chatter about this that there was even conversation in the days coming into this race that maybe they should change the distance. But you can see what Florent Giroux does from this outside draw. He hustles his horse, Gunrunner, to the front, establishes that position for the first turn, and then he ends up drawing off and winning very comfortably and very easily. And we take you back to 2008, which we will in just a second as we take a look at Gunrunner's stretch run and dominant performance to wrap up his career. Big Brown, same situation, drawn far outside in the Florida Derby, but you consider his greatness at that point in time and what he was able to do ultimately in the Kentucky Derby after the Florida Derby, as well as the Preakness Stakes, and then beyond that with big runs such as the turf win up at Monmouth Park. But the reality is good horses can overcome this. Now we have to see what pattern recognition will be able to do with this outside draw. And going back to the post position draw just a couple of days back, it was between City of Light and Pattern Recognition. And Pattern Recognition had the wrong pill pulled. City of Light got pill 3 pulled from the bottle, and the pendulum swung his way. And now Pattern Recognition, if he's going to be considered a great horse, he will have to overcome the outside draw. And we're standing right on the finish line. This is exactly where the race will start. As far as the timer, it begins as soon as they break from the starting gate. And just I want to show you how quick it is. You saw it in that video, how soon they get to the turn. Just a 16th of a mile. That's all they have. I mean, it wouldn't take me long to walk down there, let alone run down there, and you consider the big strides of these horses and how quickly they have to get into that rhythm and establish position into the first turn. Standing here and seeing it, it really lends perspective. It comes up on you in a hurry, and that's why the outside draw can be so detrimental.
Caton, you're here every day, and I've talked to players who say that consistently. There's a rail bias at this meet. What do you think about the outside draw to mile and eighth?
Well, in this particular instance, I think it can be a real detriment. It really depends on the horse. You have to have a superior horse who's capable of overcoming it. You also have to have a good break. If you have a good break, you're in good shape. Gunrunner outbroke the field. It didn't matter what post position he was going to be in. Inside, outside, he could have been on the far outside, and I think he still wins that race. But if you don't get away from the gate, absolutely perfect, and Pattern Recognition is a need the lead type, then you're going to have to hustle like crazy to be able to clear. And otherwise, you are hung out wide. It's a big
Bottom line, you need a good horse, Todd. There's not a sampling of race. The mile and eighth races they run if they're allowance races. They don't have 12, 13
But for speed horses, you'd rather be City of Light in this race than Pattern and Recognition.
100%.
Yeah. Audible, as we mentioned, did not have the best of races last time out in the Harlan's Holiday, losing as the favorite at 10 cents on the dollar, but has been schooling over the last few days, and watching the horses school for the Pegasus World Cup Dirt has been Christina Blacker. Christina, are you seeing a turnaround maybe for Audible?
I am, and I still have faith in Audible, Todd. I think a lot of people have dismissed him off that poor performance in the Harlan's Holiday. We're going to take a look at that right now. And you have to bear in mind, this was a very unique and quirky day. They had an absolute downpour prior to the race into a harrowed track. The maintenance crew here then tried to seal it and float it, but unfortunately at that point, it was just too late. And you can see even from the get-go, Audible was not comfortable out there, kind of threw his head as he came out of the gate, really never got into a good position, and he was under a complete drive as they turned for home. He was jumping leads and just did not take to the track in the least back in the Harlan's Holiday on December the 15th. So I think coming into the race this weekend, we have to bear in mind that he is at his best when he does like the track here at Gulfstream. One of his biggest performances was the Florida Derby back in March of 2018. And although he ran mid-December towards the end of that 3-year-old season, he is also a first-time 4-year-old coming into the race this weekend. That is one of the biggest moves forward that you'll see numbers-wise as far as Thoroughgraph goes. And I think you're also seeing that progression from him in the morning. You think back to prior to the Kentucky Derby, there was a lot of talk about his works, about how he needed to be in company, about how he was just a little lackluster in the morning, really not a generous horse in terms of what he's going to show you. He has improved since then. He is maturing, he is becoming more of a professional, and he is giving more of himself in the mornings. So he will be a bit of a price, but I'm not completely losing faith. He gets pace to run at, the distance is ideal, so we'll give Audible a look, certainly, coming up for the Pegasus. The horse that draws just to his inside, you talked about Cool Can. I had a chance earlier this week, speaking of schoolers, to watch him school. He looked phenomenal for a horse that has traveled quite a bit, and I also had a chance to catch up with his trainer, Fausto Gutierrez.
I think too he looks good. He have a little bit more age. He have more pounds than in the Clásico del Caribe. He trained in Mexico where have a high altitude and he have more oxygen in the blood. The real problem we have is a very tough competition. It's again Clásico del Caribe. Maybe we can win by 20. Yeah. But this is an experience we need to take, we need to have. And the only form is try. Other thing is impossible.
Gutierrez is very realistic. He knows what he is up against, and I think he's been very candid in his responses, not only with me, but with other members of the media. Todd, and as I throw it back, I found it very difficult to kind of look at some of the criticism of this horse. I know he is a monster long shot, and it would take the race of his life to be competitive, but let's give him some respect. It is a sporting gesture on behalf of his connections, and I'm happy to see that he will have the support of Mexico and Latin America as he competes this weekend.
Well, look at it this way. Our Triple Crown winner's not here, so he stayed in training, and you have to give credit, as you said, a sporting gesture by the connections of Kukulkan to even give this a try. Two main contenders are the two morning line favorites, obviously, in the Pegasus World Cup Dirt, talking about Accelerate and City of Light. Yes, they both ran on Breeders' Cup Saturday in different races, but they did meet each other earlier in the year in the Oaklawn Park Handicap and were separated by just a head. We'll talk about their rematch next.
TVG's coverage of the Pegasus is brought to you by Lanes End Farm, leading stud farm in North America 15 times and the leading sales consignor 27 times.
And welcome back to the paddock at Gulfstream Park on this preview show of the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. I'm Todd Trupp, along with Kate and Bradar, Simon Bray. We also have Christina Blacker and Scott Hazelton reporting for us today. The two main entrants in the field of 12 for the Pegasus World Cup Invitational, the morning line favorites, Accelerate and City of Light, know each other well. We mentioned they met each other in the Oaklawn Park Handicap, but what's happened to them since that time has been vastly different. As we said, Accelerate got on a different path and went to the Breeders' Cup Classic and won. City of Light going to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile and winning.
Yeah, I think a couple of things here. I pointed out, the key for me is Accelerate has 7 wins at a mile or 8 or further. Accelerate's only had, City of Light's only had one winning start at a mile and 8 or further, and that was over Accelerate. He got beat by Accelerate when going a mile and a quarter. And that's why, Kate, and I think this race is so key. It's right in the middle. I think at a mile and a quarter, I think City of Light is really, really up against it with his running style there. But I think the mile and 8 distance really brings these two a lot closer together.
It isn't interesting, though, that he was able to beat Accelerate in that one instance, right, which is significant here in the Oaklawn Handicap. I thought this was kind of a fair, neutral meeting ground, so to speak, for horses. And, Accelerate, I might have been a little bit unlucky, but for the most part, I thought both horses were given the opportunity to run their race.
They were both drawn to the outside. You see the trouble City of Light had there at the break. He broke to his knees a little bit, veered out, but he quickly recovered and was hooked on the hip of Accelerate through the stretch for the first time. So, post position was an excuse going in. They were drawn next to each other on the outside. But as we pick it up down the backside, you can see that City of Light is going much, much easier at this point. And you could see what was going to happen. It was kind of a foreshadowing. But Accelerate used to do that. He used to come off the bridle, leaving the 3/8 pole, kind of run in spots, needs a target. I don't know whether he's a little better just sitting behind a target and pouncing on him late rather than getting in a heated battle down the stretch like this.
You wonder about the racetrack itself, too. And if it's definitely a different racetrack at Oaklawn Park than what he ran at in the Breeders' Cup, to be sure. Where that fits or how it compares to Gulfstream Park, I'm not entirely sure. Gulfstream can tend to be a little bit more laboring type of track. I don't know if Oaklawn was like that day or not.
Yeah, I was surprised that he got upset there. He was undefeated since. This is their workout tab coming in. I want to highlight just the difference in preparation between the two trainers and the two types of horses. They've had the identical number of works since the Breeders' Cup. Identical, so there's no excuse there. But you see Mike McCarthy on the right, never going further than the 5/8, working in a minute. His horse is much more aggressive, does a lot more work on the bridle, gets more out of it at a shorter distance. John Sadler, on the other hand, has had a progression. 4 furlongs, 5 furlongs, 6 furlongs. 7 furlongs. And I tell you, if you ask Mike McCarthy, would you ever work City of Light 7 furlongs? He would hands down say absolutely not, because he's a different type of animal. He's a quicker animal. He gets more out of his workouts and puts more effort into it, so they don't want to expend that energy. And you can see the different plans, the different approaches that you get to bring 2 horses to a big race.
It seems so interesting about Accelerate. The City of Light, always a quick horse, always
Yep.
among the fastest in the morning at the distance, whatever the distance happens to be. Accelerate typically wasn't, but of late, particularly since the Breeders' Cup, he's sort of blossomed in terms of his times and his workouts. He's become a little bit of a different animal.
Well, a good example of that, Caden, what you're talking about is that most recent workout, January 19th, 5 furlongs at Santa Anita. It would be the fastest work of the day at 5 furlongs out of 45 horses working that distance, and would go 5 furlongs in 58 and 4.
The last work of his life, right? I mean, you don't leave it, you don't leave
True.
it back in the
Don't
barn.
leave it
You
back
put it
in the
all out
barn.
there on the table. I mean, make everything happen. This was him working his 7 furlong work 2 works back. It was in the dark. TVG was out there to witness it, and you can see it was a much longer work. And he's having to ask, when you see City of Light work, he's a different type of animal. But yeah, he's moving over the ground well, and he came right back. Normally, the penultimate work, 2 works before a race, you have the long one like this, and then you come back with an easy half mile. And as Todd pointed out, you'd usually see 5/8 in 101, 102, a half mile in 49. But they really turn the screws to him. They don't want to leave anything left unturned.
Yeah, we understand Javier Castellano will not be wearing that red light on his helmet.
Right.
City of Light working a very quick half mile here at Gulfstream Park. Is that an advantage, having a timed workout over this racetrack, Kate?
It depends on the horse, don't you think?
It absolutely doesn't. Historically, at least in terms of the Pegasus, it hasn't necessarily been an advantage. What I liked and what I think was important was that he seemed so comfortable over this racetrack and was stretching out and did this very easily, really seemed to relish the surface. It was the same type of move that we've seen at his home track. So for him to be able to duplicate that, I think is important, and important to Mike, because that's the way he's prepared him every time, is given him the opportunity to work over the track he's going
You
to
can
run.
see how easy he is. He's a much more up-tempo horse. He does things much easier than Accelerate does.
The field, a field of 12 with the showdown between Accelerate and City of Light. Javier Castellano aboard City of Light, Joel Rosario aboard Accelerate. And that shouldn't be forgotten about. That was mentioned last night. I thought Janine Edwards has a great thing to go out of her way and mention Victor Espinosa, who had been the rider on Accelerate before his injury, and now Joel Rosario has ably taken over.
Yeah, I mean, that's an unfortunate circumstance, and he was still trying to make a comeback, so we wish Victor all the best, and I'm sure he'll be sitting at home rooting on Accelerate.
This 12th race, the Pegasus World Cup Invitational on the dirt, is the final race on the 12-race card on Saturday. But as we said, there are 9 stakes races overall, 6 of them graded. Take advantage of each and every betting opportunity on Saturday as a TVG account holder. And we've got our money-back special for you for races 1 through 10. But you have to opt in at tvg.com/promos. Don't miss Pegasus World Cup Day on TVG, live coverage on site. You can play it all at tvg.com. And when we come back on this preview show, we will be talking about the inaugural running of the $7 million Pegasus Cup Turf. More from Hallandale Beach, Florida, right after this.
Aerolet is already a star in Japan. And when she lines up in the Pegasus World Cup Turf, she'll be following in the footsteps of some Japanese stars, ones who have already shown the way to international success.
The Japan Cup winner surges to the lead, and Gentle Donna wins the Dubai Shima Classic. Delta Blues and Port they come to the line. Delta Blues and
As the global success of the Japanese has grown, so have their accomplishments stateside, as they burst onto the scene with an historic victory in Southern California.
The Japanese superstar, Cesario! She's running them off their feet. Cesario!
And in 2008, Japan conquered the American dirt.
But here's Casino Drive, who said sayonara to this field.
And most recently, they again found the California turf to their liking.
All swear by a Nuovo record on the outside. All Nuovo record ahead, Bob.
Aerolet is already a Group 1 winner in her homeland. But given the strong precedent set by her elders, she merits serious consideration to add an American Grade 1 victory to her impressive resume in the Pegasus World Cup Turf.
Ohio gozaimasu, and welcome back to the Pegasus World Cup Day preview here on TVG. Looking at Aerolit as one of 10 in the inaugural running of the Pegasus World Cup turf. That looks like a big price to me, given her resume at 8-1.
I think so. I think she's a very talented filly. She's beaten the boys. She's run well against the boys. I know she had a misstep last time out, but I think there were some excuses that went hand in hand with that, and 8-1's a huge price.
How difficult is it for a Japanese-based runner to come over to America? What is the travel like?
I think it's very tough, especially on the East Coast. It would be a lot easier to go to the West Coast, one hop right across the Atlantic Ocean there. But as you can see, her journey started well over 2 weeks ago. It started in Tokyo. She made a flight to Seoul for 587 miles, just a quick hop, and then took off from Seoul after a little layover there, made the journey all the way across the Atlantic over the top, landed in Anchorage. That added another 3,800 miles to a trip. Refueled there, and they made the trip down south down to Miami, 4,000 miles added onto that. A total travel time, 21 and a half hours, over 8,000 miles, and she arrived on January the 16th at 3:15 a.m. Eastern time here at Gulfstream Park. So that's an accomplishment in itself to get here and get here in one piece looking as well as she does.
Kate, if she runs the races as she ran in Japan, is she good enough to beat this group?
I think so. I think that the Japanese competition, particularly on the turf, is as solid as you'll find anywhere in the world. And we just don't see very many Japanese horses that make that type of a trip to compete here for a basis of comparison. But over the years, the ones that have fared pretty well.
There's big prestige when leaving Tokyo as far as the JRA goes and winning Grade 1 races on an international stage. We've seen it. They tried to win the ARC. They've done it with Deep Impact, but they've had so much more success. You saw it in the package there, and particularly at the Dubai World Cup Carnival meet. So I don't think it's out the realms of Aerolit to get the victory here. I think she's a very, very strong live shot.
Her connection spoke to us about what it means to bring her here.
してたんですけど、馬の方がリラックスしてフライトしてきましたね。
So the people were more worried about her than she was. She was very, very comfortable on the flight, probably more comfortable than the people riding with her. She settled right in and she took it with stride.
彼女はとても左回りの得意な馬で、左回りの海外で、また賞金も高いんでね。
So her specialty is racing counterclockwise. She's had the best results in Japan going counterclockwise, and because they run both ways in Japan. So that plus her speed and the size of the purse was definitely a big reason why the Pegasus was on their calendar.
Well, look, $7 million, like we said, you go around the world, there's only a few races that offer more money in this. No race in North America offers more money in this. Do you think we're going to get attention from overseas as this race starts to get more established in the year 2, year 3, and beyond?
I thought it was a very tough sell at first for the Europeans because of the position in the calendar. Their main season is shut down. All the focus, if they're running abroad, is in Dubai. It's great that Magic Wand showed up from Ireland. I think if this filly runs well or wins, I think you'll see more participation with that prize money. There's no bigger racing circuit in the world as far as prize money than Japan, and the fact they elect to come here and try and scoop that $3 million, it tells you how important it is. So I think we'll see more if the inaugural running here of this race, the international runners run well. It's kind of like Cigar in the Dubai World Cup. He kind of set the stage. I think the same could be in play here with these international runners.
The Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational combined with that, the Pegasus World Cup Invitational on the dirt, and it's a $16 million total purse money being offered there between those two races. So many betting opportunities on the Saturday program, and obviously the Pegasus Turf is going to be a focus for many. Scott?
It's just one horse that I think we need to not forget about, and it's strange to say this about an Aidan O'Brien runner, but Magic Wand on the inside, that turf course at Churchill Downs was not firm. I mean, you just look back at those races and the weather that was in Louisville, Kentucky. Look at what Magic Wand was able to do over a very fast turf course at Royal Ascot. She was at her best, and I think that she's going to get that sort of ground to work with today. She beat some really nice horses in that event at Royal Ascot, so watch out for Magic Wand with all the attention going to Aero Lit. Watch out for her. They're not racing with Lasix, so she's carrying the same amount of weight that Aerolit is in the Pegasus turf. But let's talk wagering opportunities. I'm going mid-race or mid-card pick 4 on Saturday here at Gulfstream Park, starting with race number 5, which I'm buying. There's not a horse in this race that I could leave off my ticket, so I am punching the all button in race number 5. Looking at the South Beach race number 6, it's all about Bill Mott for me. I think he's in line to have a huge day as he continues this fantastic meet at Gulfstream Park. Dolce Lily, I think the cutback to 7.5 is a plus. She's got speed, which will be useful. And then Capella Temptress, she's the foil of her stablemate. She will be rolling late, so watch out for her, for Judd Montfarnes and Joel Rosario. Moving on to the Hurricane Birdie, strong opinion here. I think it's a two-horse race, Blamed with her speed. And I mean, you look at a filly that's been able to win from 5.5 to 1.1 miles. She has some serious talent, the daughter of Blame, with Julian in the saddle, and it's impossible to leave the Eclipse Award winner off your ticket in Shamrock Rose. She needs the setup. Maybe she'll get it on Saturday. And then in the La Proviante to close things out at 1.5 miles on the turf course, I'm going to lean on the 5-horse Tricky Escape for John Service. I love the fact that he is sticking with Chris DiCarlo. So often we see these trainers and these connections go towards bigger riders, and this is no disrespect to Chris DiCarlo, but Jason knows it's working with him, so stick with him, and you know that Chris is going to be hungry for this victory on Saturday. So that's the approach in the mid-card pick 5 for me. As far as the money back special play, I go back to the Philly Sprint race, and I will lean on Blamed. I think her quickness is something that we have to rely on, and we'll see if she can pull the mild upset in that race versus Shamrock Rose. Those are my thoughts as far as handicapping. Christina, where are you taking it?
It's got so many options as far as the bettors go for Saturday. Any of the pick 4s, the pick 5s, of course that Rainbow 6, and a fun double as well from the Pegasus World Cup turf into the dirt race. I see it as fairly formful. It's not going outside the box in here. Yoshida, as good as he has been, and dual grade 1 winner on turf and dirt. I use Aerolith as well. I give her a big shot, but I do have some concern about her as far as the pace. If you look at her last few races, she grabs the bit, she jumps up and wants to be on the lead. I'm concerned if she does tend to go for that, and with Fahan Murrah, they might run off together early on in the race. Bricks and Mortar is the real X factor for me. If he is able to replicate his last race for Chad Brown, he could be any kind moving forward through 2019. And then Catapult, who I touched on earlier. And then I'm going to go right to Accelerate. I wanted to go back and forth with him in City of Light, but as much as I consider the distance and the tactics, I really do think that Joel Rosario is going to be able to just take it to them as they turn for home, perhaps take City of Light by surprise. And with regard to City of Light, if they don't go ahead and let him roll early away from there, that takes away his best weapon. He is going to have some company up on the front end. He is not going to have the same type of trip and obviously another turn to negotiate versus the Breeders' Cup. But as far as the money back special, right there with Scott, with Blamed, I'll go to race number 7 on the program with the Hurricane Birdie, back to Bill Mott. Julian Leperoux is going to be aboard. 5-1 on the morning line. I'm hoping you'll get that because these fillies have really traded punches throughout the division all year. She's sort of the fresh face. She was second to Shamrock Rose a couple starts back, but I think she is improving, and I think she's going to love Gulfstream Park. She is fast. She doesn't need to take her racetrack with her, so I'll hope for that 5-1 as far as the money back special goes with Blamed. Todd.
Well, as we said, it's an adult wagering menu. You make the choice. Every option is there. Simon, what wager are you going to be looking at on Saturday?
Pick 5. I mean, this card is phenomenal. I think it's one of the best cards I've seen since the Breeders' Cup at any racetrack in North America. So I'm going to try and string 5 consecutive winners together, starting in race number 8. And I think that starts off with a very tough edition of the La Prévoyante, going 1.5 miles on the turf. I'm spreading in there 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. I don't really have a strong opinion on anybody. I think it could be a blanket finish. I think it's up for grabs there. Santa Monica, of course, will get some play for Chad Brown, but CKS Buena, the 7 for Graham Motion, I think could improve here. Lightly raced in the U.S., could be a fresh face around many that have tried this division for a long time. 1, 4, 6 in race number 9. Cold Front, the 4 will be my top pick in there. Breaking Lucky as we look at the field for the La Prévoyante there at 3-1 on the morning line. There's the Fred Hoover Stakes, and I'll make Breaking Lucky my top pick for George Weaver. I was really impressed with that race last time out over this racetrack back in December. Had plenty of time to recover. Moving on to race number 10. That's going to be the McKnight, the boys' version of leg 1 of this race. 2, 7, 8, 9 in there. Zulu Alpha 4-1 on the morning line. But I think Canassar for Javier Castellano, Ana Delacour, I think that's a horse who's improving. A lot of these horses hit the board. They don't win very often. Again, you're going to see 3 on the wire there when it's all said and done. Bunch of long shots to the outside. Village King for Pletcher going to get played just because of the connections. And then we've talked about those last 2 races, the Turf and the Pegasus World Cup there. I'm going to go ahead and single accelerate. I'm going to use Aerolit. And in this race, I'm going to add Yoshida. I think he's the horse to beat, but I think the horse to play is Aerolit. So I'll just go 2-4 in the Pegasus World Cup Turf. And then just wrap it up with Accelerate in the nightcap.
Simon Bray's Pick 5 ticket for Pegasus World Cup Day.
I have a money-back special plan. I tell you what, you're going to love this
race?
one. Oh, race number 6. This is going outside the box. I'm giving you a 12-1 morning line price here, and I absolutely love this horse tomorrow. Who's trying something? Yeah, they say never take a short price on a horse trying something for the first time, right?
Oh, Jimmy's going to love this.
Yeah, Jimmy's going to love this. 12-1. How did you know? First time turf, first time going along by Jimmy Creed, one of those kind of forgotten about turf size. He was an exceptional one-turn horse on the dirt, Caton, but his offspring, when they jump on the grass course, they move up lengths. I think that horse is going to have controlling pace up on the front end. He's going to appreciate the switch over to the turf and love the added distance. Look out.
Kate, what pool are you looking at on
I'm
Saturday?
going to jump into the $1 million guaranteed Pick 4. The late Pick 4 are all stakes races, culminating in the big 2. But I think the toughest leg, where we're going to get a little bit of an upset, is the Fred Hooper 9th race. I'm spreading. I'm taking all I can in there, including Coal Front, likely to be favored. Breaking Lucky, I agree with Simon, is sitting on a big race, I think. But Aztec Sense is very, very fast. He'll take advantage of the track playing to speed if it does, the way it sometimes does on big event days. The 8, Coppertown, rather, the other Todd Pletcher horse, and also Unbridled One, I think, could run a big race, shortening up just a little bit, in very good form of late. The 10th and the McKnight, I'm just using a couple, Solio and Alpha Zulu, or Zulu Alpha, the 2 from Mike Maker, and then throwing in Todd's horse. I'm hoping he doesn't get bet down, Simon, is I think he should be big odds, but I think he might like the 1.5 miles. We might see a better effort for him. Turf race, I'm going Bricks and Mortar and Aerolit. Just boil it down to 2. And then I can't choose. I do think the pace in the Pegasus favors Accelerate, but I still think City of Light is doing so well. I'm going to use him. And I'm throwing in Guinevere because if he jumps up and runs that monster race, he's going to give us a very nice payoff in that Pick 4. And for my money back special, I'm going to go to the 5th race, the Ladies Turf Sprint. 5 furlongs on the turf, really, really competitive. Morticia's going to take some betting. I don't think she's in her best form. There's a lot of ways you could go, but Ms. Mayhem had a troubled trip last out, gets a big rider switch to Joel Rosario, and she's 12-1 on the morning line.
Okay, look, I'm playing all those wagers, so I wasn't asked for a specific wager. I was asked basically for a pick in the World Cup Dirt as well as a long shot in that race. I think the race goes through City of Light. I think his draw as well as the inside is going to help him and be the horse to beat. But if there is a significant upset in the Pegasus World Cup Invitational on the dirt, Tom's d'Etat. Yeah, I think those Saints fans will swing back the other way with their luck. It all evens out in the end anyway, so why not some good luck for GMB Racing, a horse who's lightly raced. He also has the ability to stalk, and I think that'll be important with the amount of pace that may be lined up in the Pegasus World Cup Dirt. So don't sell short Tom's d'Etat. That is a long shot with, I think, a huge chance. As far as my money back special on the undercard, go to the William L. McKnight. I'm not even going to bloviate here. Hunter O'Reilly, name in town if you wish to opine. Gelded since the last race and runs well off a freshening, gets Flavian Pratt aboard. If you look at what he did in the Bowling Green at Saratoga off a similar freshening, a repeat of that effort, and Hunter O'Reilly can upset the field in race number 10, the William L. McKnight. He'll be my money back special play on the undercard. All right, what a third edition of this Pegasus World Cup.
I think the best ever as far as depth.
Oh, I think so. But I think the trend's going to continue. Breeders' Cup Classic winner to Pegasus World Cup. It's going to be 3 of those in a row.
Be sure to tune in, and if you're in the area, come on out for the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. Race number 1 on the card all the way through 12. And then afterwards, Mark Ronson, worldwide producer and DJ, will be with, yes, the well-known Snoop Dogg.
You going?
To the races. I am. How could I not? It's a live pop-up nightclub. They don't have a live nightclub in LA, so I got to come down here to Miami and experience it at Gulfstream Park. It really is the ultimate entertainment facility, Kate. That's what the Stronach Group wanted to create with the environment that we have here at Gulfstream Park, and this day encapsulates their vision.
Started with the Eclipse Awards, carries through the racing this afternoon, and culminates with the concert after the biggest race in the world.
The 12th and final race on Saturday is the Pegasus World Cup, but don't forget about the wagering menu and the opportunities throughout the card. The big guarantees are late, but there are fantastic races. For example, 1 through 5, that early pick 5 is a great sequence, as is the early pick 4. I know, because I've handicapped it, and I'll be playing along with you at tvg.com. Join in on the action. And as far as the weather, what are we looking at?
Well, I think we're intermittent showers there. Scott kind of touched on it at the top of the show, the 60% chance of showers, but they're so hit and miss. I looked at the weather forecast all week long leading up to this week, and there's a chance we may get zero precipitation here in this area. It might be just to the south of us in Miami. Of course, we're about 35, 40 minutes north of South Beach, Miami here in Hallandale Beach Boulevard. So there's a chance we won't get any precipitation here at this location.
The nice thing, Kate, it's not going to be overbearingly hot or humid.
No, in fact, 69 to 70 degrees would be absolutely perfect. I think wouldn't be an excuse for any of the horses. And even if we do get the rain, I really think this track seems to be resilient. It holds up very well. They'll have it in great shape.
Yeah, Scott mentioned expected to be up to an inch, but that will be intermittent throughout the day, so it can be handled throughout. Come on out and enjoy a fantastic day of racing. One of the best of the 2019 calendar. It's Pegasus World Cup Day here at Gulfstream Park. If you can't be here, you got the next best thing, watching our on-site coverage and playing at tvg.com. For my colleagues, Scott Hazelton, Christina Blacker, Simon Bray, and Kaiten Bradar, I'm Todd Schrupp. Until next time, may all your photo finishes be winning one.